Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 339 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. Well, it's turned cold again and I'm looking almost hourly at the long-range forecast for a glimmer of warmer weather. It's not far off, I'm pleased to say, and we have colonies in desperate need of some settled, warmer weather to be sure. I'm filling my time by considering our queen rearing plans and the role of the finisher colony. Listen in for my thoughts on that and other beekeeping challenges. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Before we get into today's beekeeping conversation, and in the absence of anyone else supporting my podcast with an advert or two, here's my little self-promotion again. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help you improve your beekeeping. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company. Hi everyone, another week and another change in the weather conditions, certainly this morning in particular. It was literally freezing when I got up and there was a frost on the ground. Admittedly, I did get up at 4:30 a.m. to take a look at the total eclipse of the moon, the first of 2 lunar eclipses this year. Everything was going great until the Earth's shadow started to encroach on the moon, exactly what I was looking for, and then a combination of rooftops, trees, and a ruddy great cloud ruined the whole experience. Oh well, there's always the 7th of September this year. That's the date of the second lunar eclipse of 2025, and maybe, just maybe, I might be sat high on the North Yorkshire moors picking up my colonies from a successful trip to get some heather honey. Who knows? Anyway, always the optimist, and we'll see what happens. This recent cold snap has done nothing to alleviate my concerns about one tiny little nucleus colony that's been on the decline really for a few weeks now, gradually getting smaller and smaller, and now at the point where a couple of cold nights will probably see them succumb. Other than that one, everything else is looking pretty strong. That warmer spell certainly helped, and looking at the forecast, if we can just see those colonies through to maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week, we will hit another spell of warmer weather, with top daytime temperatures hitting something around 16 degrees Celsius. That's nearly 61 degrees Fahrenheit. It would be nice to think this is the fast start, the early start, that us UK-based beekeepers are hoping for. Having said that, if we do start to see a shift to warmer daytime temperatures, don't be in too great a hurry to start doing too much with your bees. The temptation is to start swapping out vast numbers of frames or carrying out shook swarms, only to find the mid to late spring period suddenly turns cold and wet and ruins all of your plans for the spring and summer. Doing anything with your bees as risky as an early shook swarm can really cause colonies to get knocked back so badly that for the rest of the season all you can hope for is their survival and growth into a colony that will overwinter next year. It really can be that dreadful. My suggestion to you is this: Watch the overnight temperatures. These are, in my opinion, far more important and will indicate a general warming up of the season and a safer time perhaps to start working with your bees. Here in Norwich, for instance, our average overnight temperatures, according to the Met Office, are for March 4 degrees Celsius, for April 5 degrees Celsius, and for May a much more reliable 8 degrees Celsius. You can see from these numbers March and April can still be quite unpredictable, and as such could cause us beekeepers some sleepless nights still, whereas May is looking much more comfortable, certainly overnight for our colonies, and is a great time to get those old frames swapped out however you choose to do it. That's not to say you can't do anything earlier than that. I'm just urging caution and I guess a common sense approach to any choices that you make concerning manipulations and changes. For instance, if you're into spring cleaning, like I am, late March or sometime in April would be perfectly fine to complete a swap out. I wouldn't swap any frames at this stage though, not unless I had drawn comb on brood frames and there was a spring nectar flow or that I could feed the bees adequately. My spring clean is straightforward enough, and although it sounds quite disruptive, actually isn't so bad, particularly if you select a warm day and carry the process out in the early afternoon. A spring clean isn't an inspection. A spring clean is simply swapping out the floor, brood box, coverboard or crownboard and roof. If you have a feeder on, then there's not necessarily any need to swap this unless it's in a poor condition. Again, the feeder question is a common sense question taken at the time of the spring clean. But if you're doing this kind of cleanup, then taking a fresh feeder along makes sense. So why not swap it anyway, I guess? Here's my thoughts on this process in detail for anyone that's just starting beekeeping. Why am I doing a spring clean anyway? Well, hive parts get dirty. It's as simple as that, really. Digging a bit deeper, floors get debris that can easily hide and help wax moth larvae to pupate. Entrances can get blocked and grubby. Brood box walls can become dirty and may even have mould on them. Crownboards or coverboards get propolised or have wax built onto them, making it tricky to either lift them off or put them back on without crushing bees. So that can be renewed too. And with all of this, you're removing any amount of pests and diseases that may be lurking on that equipment. It all goes to help the spring colony improve its health and fitness. The added bonus here for the beekeeper is that it makes inspecting the colony so much easier when everything is clean. You don't end up fighting wax and propolis as you lever out old frames, occasionally so badly fixed that the top bar comes away from the rest of the frame. It also allows you to clean out the old hive and have it ready for any work you have planned in the spring, such as swarm management by using an artificial swarm or something similar. Looking at the calendar, Thursday or Friday of next week is looking warmest, so early afternoon on either of those days might be an appropriate time to carry out this kind of swap. Now, I won't be changing any frames, remember. As I said earlier, I'll wait until the weather warms up overnight a little before I launch into swapping out any frames. But if it's warm enough, I will have a quick look for brood, eggs and young larvae. Not a full-on 40-minute frame-by-frame, cell-by-cell inspection so loved by beginner beekeepers. And before anyone says anything, I'm not being disparaging against beginner beekeepers. It's what I used to do in the early days, so I do understand that desire, but just wait a bit longer before you get too focused on those longer inspections. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been thinking about the queen rearing plans and methods that we're likely to use. Today, I wanted to just cover off a little bit about the queen cell finisher colony. You'll hear them mentioned, and it can sound overly complicated, but actually isn't. And for the small to mid-sized beekeeping setup, probably you're likely not to ever need a finisher colony, because, in my opinion, it just adds another layer of work. So what is a finisher colony? Well, as the name describes, it's a colony that's used to finish off queen cell production from having just a small amount of development through to the final sealed queen cell. It's useful where the beekeeper may have a queenless starter colony and wants to produce a lot of queen cells but doesn't want to have the multiple cloak boards set up, for instance. I'll come back to the cloak board in a moment. One issue with trying to get queen cells produced is that using queen-right colonies can sometimes produce lower numbers of starter cells, and it's always better to use a queenless swarm box or starter colony to get the maximum number of queen cells started. Once you have them being nurtured and developed, and this probably only takes a day, so maybe 24 to 36 hours perhaps, those queen cells can go on to be placed into a queen-right colony and have those queen cells developed to completion using the supersedure impulse, rather than that emergency impulse which often produces poorer quality queen cells. This is where, for the small to mid-size setup, a colony managed using a cloak board is perfect, as it incorporates both starter and finisher roles all in one. A finisher colony is probably best as a double brood setup. Certainly that's what we've used in the past, and confession time, it's not a setup I've used many times just because I never found it necessary, having settled on the cloak board method. But the double brood finisher setup allows for a strong queen-right colony to be used in the same way as the top box of the cloak board hive, with a queen excluder between both brood boxes, keeping the queen in the bottom box with the developing queen cells in the top box. Hence, the supersedure impulse kicks in rather than a continuing emergency impulse. A word of caution here, just like with the cloak board hive, once those queen cells are sealed, a queen-right colony could swarm, so you really need to be on top of your timings, and no amount of poor weather should stop you from removing those sealed queen cells on time, even if you have to take an umbrella with you. Producing queens doesn't have to be complicated or use a huge amount of additional equipment. If you've ever lost a swarm, then congratulations, you're a producer of queens. Artificial swarms allow the small-scale beekeeper to produce a single replacement queen, one at a time, whilst retaining the old queen should anything go wrong with that process, a fail-safe if you like. Don't forget the Demaree-style vertical splits if apiary space is at a premium, and we've used those to good effect on many occasions. Moving up from this, and maybe at a later stage, when inspections reveal multiple queen cells in a single colony, you could simply go for walk-away style splits, and it doesn't especially matter if you happen to have lost the swarm already or not. This method can produce as many queens as you have queen cells, on separate frames of course, plus additional queens if you fancy cutting out those extra queen cells held on the same frame. Taking a step on from here, and reminding myself that we're now looking at an ever-increasing need for additional equipment, my thoughts turn to the deliberate act of producing queen cells. This might be the Miller method or the Alley method, using brood frames loaded with eggs and young larvae, simple in its way, but requiring a little more thought and a queen cell building colony. Perhaps a starter and finisher combination, as in the John Harding queen rearing setup or the cloak board method that I've already mentioned. From here, and with ever increasing queen cell production, I think about the Genta or Nico methods. These could produce upwards of 100 queen cups loaded with developing larvae. So imagine the number of queenless nucleus colonies queen rearing colonies, queen cell mating nukes that you're going to need. It's quite a lot now. Finally, and not least, we have the method of grafting individual larvae into cell cups such as the JZ-BZ system cups. Fun to try and can be used if you just want a couple of queen cells, or maybe you want hundreds. It's a good system for both. Once we've our chosen method of queen rearing, we can determine the best method of developing those cells for that method that we've chosen. An artificial swarm is simple and requires a second empty hive with frames and foundation. The same for a vertical split system or Demaree style method. Walkaway splits need a nuke box for each split. This might be one, or if you really wanted to stretch it, as many frames with a queen cell on them, so 8, 10, 12 even. Unlikely, but never say never in beekeeping. A starter-finisher colony, such as a cloakboard system, needs just one additional brood box. Oh, and a cloak board, of course, don't forget that. Alternatively, a swarm box, which is simply a queenless colony, and we've used those on occasion too. If you're thinking you need finisher colonies, you're probably a more experienced queen rearer than I am, so I'll leave that with you to think through. For everyone else, don't forget the simple queen mating nukes that only take a handful of bees and are relatively inexpensive. I say simple, but I've never really managed to succeed with these, so I have always opted for larger nukes, such as the BS Honeybees nukes, that can be set up as 3-frame nukes, or the honeypore nukes that we currently have that are 4-frame. Remember, just because these take 4 frames or 3 frames, you don't have to use that many frames to get queens mated and started off laying. For me, this year, and I'm sat here chuckling to myself as I finish off this podcast, we'll probably have a mash-up of most of these methods to give you all a feel for what's involved, how successful or otherwise they are for me. And of course, there'll be lots of videos for you to watch as we head through the season. If you have any questions about these queen rearing methods or anything else from today's podcast, do drop me a message using direct messaging or email via our website. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to check out my website, www.norfolk-honey.co.uk, and for my latest videos and podcasts with more updates, tips and techniques, it's the same Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. And remember, I'm Stewart Spinks, and that was Beekeeping Short and Sweet.